Welcome in. It is a new year and probably the same old you. I'd say it'd probably be much the same of me in 2025 as it was in 2024. I hope you have found your way into the new calendar year in good health, in good shape, and fired up, ready to go for another year. I am about to sit down with Mikey and record a 2025 podcast with some predictions and some themes and some thoughts that will hopefully inspire you and get you thinking as well. But before we do that, we're going to rip through Money Mail, and I've really taken a little bit of a shot at this one, and called out some of those people that just continue to bring others down, but also look for reasons that they can't do it. And I know a lot of you who have been listening for some time now, you've probably broken through this mindset, and your mind will be tuned to opportunities and success and making things happen. But for a lot of Kiwi people, I think they're still stuck at the fact that it can't be them, or they don't know how, or they see other people making things happen, and their brains are so fried and so, I don't know what other word to use, but stuck, that the instant reaction is why it can't be them. And it's good for everybody else, but not for them. And one of the first things to tidying up your shit, I believe, is actually stopping thinking like that and starting to look for reasons that you can make things happen. Now, as you know, I think that we've been weakened through that pandemic period where things are a little bit cushy, and we're going to double down and actually do a podcast about that in the new year too. And it's probably going to trigger a lot of people. But for those of you who have learned to think objectively and look down at some of the things we talk about, it'll be a good way for you to think, oh yeah, I hadn't really looked at it from that angle before. So looking forward to doing that. But firstly, we just want to set the scene for 2025, and Mike and I will do that in the podcast that we're about to record. Now, it's Sunday, the 5th of January, 11:19 as I hit record on this. He's coming in at midday. The man has been going hard over the break, I believe. I've had a nice break, and I've been around the country, and yeah, as I often say, there's no recession in Wanaka with the amount of boats and whatnot that I see down there and the amount going on. But it is a small area, and I think people cram in, and it makes it feel like it's just hissing. But I don't know what the rest of the country has been like. I'm looking forward to seeing some data and whatnot. But anyway, before we sort of set the scene for 2025, I wanted to start off Money Mail this year with a bit of a reminder, because I think that people are starting to get sick of complainers. And I think that might be one of the themes for 2025, is that people are just over the fucking complainers and the whingers and the poor me. We've had a couple of years of that, and I think, and I hope, that it'll get louder to combat that and be like, bro, shut up. Like, we're sick of hearing that, man. Like, you've been talking about that for 2 years, man. 18 months, you've still done nothing about it. Fuck you doing about it. And we've been thinking like this for years now, so we're going to get a jump on all of these people. But I think there'll be more people that are louder, saying to friends, family, other people, workmates and stuff, mate, I don't want to hear it. I'm sick of you banging on about that. Like, you've done nothing about it, and you've been telling me about this for 12 months. I know your rates have gone up, mate. Like, yep. And yes, that sucks, and they're going to continue to, and definitely that's still worth conversation. But I think there'll be more people who are just like, yeah, we're not as outraged anymore, so just get on with it. What are you going to do? And if, you can't get yourself past that stage, it's a tough space to stay. So let's explore some of the things that I heard in 2024. And the first one, I guess, is the young fella that messaged me was talking about cleaning windows. And I checked it up on the story, but someone messaged me and said, well, they're just lucky that they've got all the equipment. Seriously? Like, imagine seeing that and that being your reaction. Oh, they're lucky that they've got all the equipment to clean windows. Then last year there was the person who was selling firewood and doing stuff on the farm and whatnot, and then investing. They're at the age of 19. I got pounded with messages about how completely unrealistic, it's unrelatable, they're privileged, look what they've got. They'll be listening to this pod. Shout out to you. I hope your investments are going well, and I hope that you're continuing to make shit happen as the keyboard commenters and cowboys and cowards do next to Fork All, and have a crack at people like yourself. Anyway, so I get bombarded with that's unrealistic, and that they've got a family farm and all this sort of shit, and you're like, okay, cool. And then there was Angela, who we had recently on the podcast as well, one of the changers, people that are making change in their life from Keep the Change, and then telling us the story. And she was explaining why it was important to her to have an emergency fund so that she no longer needed to go into debt when an emergency happened, or ask the old bank of mum and dad. Great reason to have an emergency fund, to not need to speak to the bank of mum and dad and to build your reliance on yourself rather than others. Very noble thing to aim for. Or, obviously just not going into that debt that's going to make life trickier for you. But no. Poor old bloody Angela, she had to be the person at the middle of a message for me to receive telling me that it'd be good if I could interview some people that, didn't have the bank of mum and dad to fall back on. Oh, okay. Rightio. No, fair enough. Leave it with me. I guess the saddest thing for these people that, Angela's podcast is amazing if you didn't listen to it, and there's so much in there. And I was saying to my partner on reflection of it, she was like, "Oh, that was a really interesting podcast." I was like, "What did you take from it?" She told me some things. I was like, "Look at this message that I've got," and I said, "Like, imagine that's what you hear. That's your key takeaway from that podcast from Angela. Is I better message Luke and tell him that she mentioned the bank of mum and dad, and it'd be good if you could ask or speak to some people that don't have that as an option." Angela was explaining about getting away from the bank of mum and dad, but still, people... Anyway, what happened to these people? What happened to some of us? And when did we get so good at dismissing other people's actions to keep ourselves stuck and upset at our own situation? Now, I do get it that we look at other people and kind of think, well, it can't be me. But once you realise that there will always be people with more than you and that are on another level than you, or who have more privilege than you, or went to a flashy uni, or have a bigger fucking deck out the back of their house, or get free power because someone's dad works at the power company, or whatever. If you keep spotting that shit and thinking, well, then you might as well not try, and that nothing good can happen for you, as I always say, imagine passing that on to your kids. I wouldn't bother playing rugby, son. Why not, Dad? I love it. Makes me really happy. I love playing. No, Bodie Barrett's boys in the team. Does he have a son? Don't know. Anyway, he'll probably be the best kicker in the team. He'll get the kicking. Oh, Dad, but I really like it. Nah. Back inside. Grow up. Be a fuckwit. Sorry, Jesus, I'll get fired up now. But seriously, this stuff makes no sense. But individually, ourselves, we do it. We just look at reasons why it can't be us. And I feel like it's got into a peak. And I don't know what happened to people. It doesn't make sense to me to stay there. But what I do like about what we're cultivating with Keep the Change, and we saw this at Keep the Change Unplugged, is that one of the key pieces of feedback was that people were able to be comfortable being around and in a room of other people that are there to push for more, that are there to help their lives get better, that are there to succeed, that want more from life, that want to give more, that are thinking abundantly, all of the cool shit. And it was all good to be in a room with people like that. And it was almost like a reprieve from New Zealand that sort of sucks you down out the other side. But part of me does think that the negative and the "it can't be me" and the tall poppy, the complainers, etc., a lot of those people are probably really, really struggling, and social media has become their outlet. And it will be incredibly validating for them to have something now where they can complain and where they can bring other people down and when they can tell you that you don't understand and that couldn't work for me and that they're lucky and that blah, 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 blah. And then other people like their comment and they get a notification from social media saying, hey, Barry the Battler also with a fucking cat profile and negative shit all through their Facebook profile if you go and have a look at it, liked your comment. You're like, oh, mean. Yeah, that other person doing well over there, that is right. They shouldn't be, they should realise that they're only doing well because of this one thing that I've mentioned. Oh, okay. And then they're not actually thinking, okay, should I go and have a look at that profile? Should I see how hurt that person is, how negative they are, etc. To then get a better picture of, okay, what do these likes actually matter? But the same for us on the other side when we are kicking ass and whatnot. We have to realise that there will always be people that are, doing more and whatnot, but that's all good too. And yesterday it was really cool. Someone sent through some dividends that they'd had, and it might have been around $7-10. And I put it on the profile on Instagram, and people leaving comments, been like, "Fuck yeah, that's awesome." And I was waiting for the $10. What's that? Because it's just inevitable that there'll be those people. And then I put today the dude who's got $6 million in their sharesies, and it's a reminder for all of us, like, whoa, shit, okay. But they were also down, I think, 50-something% 2 years ago, but they didn't sell. And a year later, they're up, and a year later, they're up 120%. So everybody's running their own race, and they're doing their thing. And I always encourage you to try and find ways that you can get through your race, and don't worry too much about what other people are doing. It doesn't. Just because someone can run a marathon and win a gold medal doesn't stop us from being like, you know what, I might enter the Auckland Marathon. Like, we don't stop and go, nah, no point. Someone's going to be way faster than me. A lot of these things in sport I use as an example because it then helps you make sense of like, yeah, fuck, why do I think about it like this in my money? And I was talking to my partners today about some content later in this year too about nutrition and money, and how once you start making more, you get access to different people and healthcare, and you start investing into your health a bit more and things like that, because you're out of survival mode and status mode and whatnot. And like, it's really interesting that a lot of these things that would be really important to learn, just like we talk about with financial literacy, we don't learn as individuals. But if you were in a sports team, like, you would get the knowledge and you would know what supplements to take. You would get access to a physio, a nutritionist, a high performance coach, and all these sorts of things. So why I'm thinking about that is because there's a wave of content that I'm going to work on bringing individuals, so yourselves, but also business owners in 2025, and just go a little bit broader than finances, because I think that once you tidy up some of your finances and get out of that status mode and whatnot, the game starts to change, and you do start to look for smart ways to invest into your health and yourself. And it's not just about investments, as I often talk about. It's not just about New Zealand companies and main freight and the S&P 500 and all of that stuff as well. But anyway, let's get back on topic and on track. So yes, I can see how this happens, but it scares me how bad it's got to just dismiss other people's actions rather than be inspired by them. But my key being that what I like about what we're cultivating with the Keep the Change community and followers and listeners is that they actually celebrate other people's success, and like, fuck yeah, you've got $3 of dividends, that's epic. And it all starts somewhere. And it had me reflecting about, my first dividend and my first piece of interest, and how it was really meaningful to me to have, $18, I think it was. I was like, oh shit, man, like $18, it's a gym membership for the week. Yo, like, what the, okay. And it all started to make a bit of sense. And then I actually had a look at my internet banking for the start of January, and I had a $980 passive income payment. And it's just like water off a duck's back, because you get used to it. But a long time ago, I probably would never have foreseen that I'd have $980 coming in from me investing my money somewhere and it paying me a monthly return. So, and that's like a decent amount of money now. And it would be, for some people, like, holy shit, that's a life-changing amount of money to have coming in each month without having to do anything for it. And other people would be like, well, it's bugger all. But that's the beauty of finances and money in life, is that we're all at different stages and we're all running different races, and you've got to figure out where you are and where you're going, and then what is going to get you there, and then maybe how you can improve yourself throughout that race to get there a little bit faster. Now, back to these people that do, point out other people and why it can't be them and whatnot. I think some of them, don't actually want their life to be better, and they might want to just stay where they are. And I don't really know why that is. I guess that's an individual thing. Maybe it's worried about, fear. Maybe it's like conditioning or beliefs. Might be surrounding themselves with so much information that it can't be them. They're collecting so much data that it can't be them. And they're reading shit and looking at shit that there's no opportunities. And they're basically like wiring their brain that their life is going to be hard. So whenever someone pops up and it's basically conflicting with what their worldview is and their beliefs, they've got to let them know, like, well, no, whoa. Thank you for that amazing insight to your life and all the things you've done differently and how you've become a different person, Angela. But you mentioned the bank of mum and dad. I do not have that. So therefore, I have to let you know that this does not matter, that this is not good information. None of it. There is nothing in there that I could learn from. Rightio. So it just makes no sense, does it? But I think people have got themselves so wound up by so much negativity and shit out there that they're stuck and they're not looking for what opportunities could be there for them. Now, I said, I think people are stuck looking at others and what they are doing and why it can't be them, instead of realizing that they need to turn their brains to looking for opportunities. And how many times have you heard me say this now? Have opportunity written down around you somewhere, and you will spot more of it. And I'll tell you like a really quick story on this, because obviously I do like so much thinking and writing. I was writing down themes for the 2025 podcast with Mikey, and we'll talk about distractions in there. And I was writing about it on the plane, and I've underlined the word distraction. And then all of a sudden, and I'd almost forgotten that was there, right? Anyway, then I see someone say, it's never been easier to get ahead, but it's just that it's never been easier to get distracted. I'm like, fuck, that is good. I'm doing a money mail on that. I'm unpacking what distractions we have, all that sort of stuff. And I'm writing that on the flight on the way back yesterday and collecting some thoughts. And then I open my notes for this 2025 pod, which I wrote before I went away or on the plane on the way down. I'm like, oh yeah, I wrote that, people are distracted, but I'm like, fuck. So my brain is then looking out for more of that to back it up. And you have to be really, really in tune to that, or just understand that is how your brain will work. So if you constantly are feeding yourself data that things can't be good for you, there's no opportunities and whatnot, you're going to find more of that to tell you that. But then you will have people that are flesh and bones and the same age and the same weight and the same IQ or whatever, kicking ass and achieving a lot more and achieving what you think isn't possible. And then you have to basically tell them, well, fuck, there must be something. There's got to be something. And it could just be what we're feeding our brains. So if you need more opportunities in your life, or if you need something better in your life, take what you want to see in your life and write it down and have it around you, just so that it just keeps planting into your brain. And I shared ages ago on Instagram where like my backdrop for my screen, my phone was, it's happening. And it was just 2 words, and it's just there every day to remind me, like, fuck, mate, just keep going, because it's happening. People are like, well, what is it? Like, what's happening? And I'm like, doesn't matter. Like, I know what's happening, and it is happening, and it continues to happen. And then I'll reflect on years and time periods and stuff, and people are like, whoa, fuck, you've done a lot and achieved a lot, and congratulations and stuff. I'm like, yeah, it's epic. And as Mikey and I explained on that 2024 podcast to wrap up the year, it's like, you almost know that it's going to happen because you are expecting it to happen. So think about what you want to happen in 2025 and plant some seeds, man. Plant them around yourself and fucking put them like in public places too. And people are like, oh, what's that all about? Just tell them and just have some confidence about it too. And if they laugh at you, be like, well, what are you up to this year?
No, I hadn't really thought about it, Just thought I'd have a crack at you for fucking having
I can't have any more conversation about this because I've got no idea. Shut up. Okay, so you just got to slowly just not get as impacted by those people and know that it's all good to set goals and want to kick some ass and make some shit happen. But of course, once we get these opportunities, we have to then take action. And that's often the tricky bit too. And I think that's what keeps people stuck, is they start to see opportunities that other people are having. When they're trying to tell themselves that there are no opportunities, and they're seeing other people take advantage of opportunities, and they're like, fuck, I don't want to take action, so I better tell this person that they don't understand, etc., because realistically they don't want to take any action because it's comfortable to stay where they are, so they would prefer to do that. But if you think about it, there are people, and I walked past one on the way back from the gym today, and they had a piece of cardboard, and they'd taken a pen, and it just said, any loose change, ? So all of us, I think, all of us in New Zealand, I would go as far as to say all of us, but someone will have to let me know, no, you forgot that there's this person. Oh, fuck's sake. I'm already trying to think who the person is that isn't involved in everyone, but I'm going to go over it, okay? Everyone in New Zealand can find a bit of cardboard and a pen and put a sign together to ask for some money. Now, even when I go through this in my head, I think I would walk past a recycling bin, and I would open it up, and I'd take the piece of cardboard out, and then I would go to a cafe, and I would say, can I please borrow a pen? Now, that's my brain and how it works. Instantly, someone's going to be like, what about blind people, bro? Come on, man. Oh, sorry. Sorry to the blind people who are listening, but I'm sure even they will have good stories in their life where they tell about what the solution would be for them if they were going to do this. Because they would be looking for opportunities. So it's bizarre that people will point out like other people's profiles that they aren't even that profile to then counter an argument. The world's a confusing place. Anyway, everyone, I believe, can find cardboard and pen and paper, a pen on that cardboard, and sit somewhere and say, hey, can I have some money? But will they do it? And I think it's a really good thing to remember when we get stuck and don't want to take action and we think that, it can't be done. Look what people are doing. They're sitting there and they have very limited resources and they still think to busk for money. Now, some of you may have some generalizations of why they're doing that, but they're still doing it and they've still found an opportunity. Some others will stand at an intersection and they'll clean car windows and ask for a few bucks. How do they know to do that? Well, I think part of it is that they're looking for opportunity that is right for them. And they're probably seeing other people doing it and going, you know what, I could probably do that too. And just about any one of us could go and do that. But will they? Will they go and do that? So full credit to those people that are out there doing that. And that's going to be more than some of the keyboard commenters tearing down other people having a crack. And it's a bloody good reminder that when we really need to be resourceful, we will be. And I think for a lot of us, like, it's actually not as hard as we think. And so then we don't push ourselves to have a crack at doing things, and we'll bring down the person who brought the property early in their life or whatever it is, because we just want to validate for ourselves that we don't need to take any action. But focusing on what you don't have will only hold you back. And it's also a really bad state to live in because you're never practicing gratitude nor realizing what you do have. There's a very big lesson in there. Focusing on what you don't have will only hold you back because you're living in a state of lack and not enough, and you're not living in a state of gratitude and being grateful for where you are and then opening your mind to, okay, what else is there? So dwelling on what others have won't help you save for a house, clear your debt, build your wealth, achieve your goals. You need to flip your mind to start looking at your own opportunities, and we all have to start somewhere, and they snowball. And that is the beauty. Go back and listen to Action Leads to Action, that podcast. A lot of people have referenced that this summer, which is cool to see. Now, the best resolution I think many New Zealanders could make is to start focusing on what they do have and what they can create, starting there. And over the summer break, I sat down and I made a video breaking down how to suffocate excuses for the people who leave the comments. And interestingly, the video has got very few comments from the keyboard cowards that always need to point out why it can't be them. There's one, I think, and it's like,
You got to have a house first to have an Airbnb.
for fuck's sake, Barry. It's 15 minutes, and there's multiple examples, and also me explaining 1,000 times that you've got to look at what opportunities you have, and they still took that one example, and they're like,
Oh, it can't be me.
bloody hell. So I think we'll never help those sorts of people, right? But you got to learn to deal with them in your life as well, because you will have them, friends, family, people in your office, etc. So, yeah, I don't know what the best or the right way is to deal with some of those people, but shit, you got to make sure that they don't impact you too much and they don't bring you down from doing what you want to do as well. So if you haven't checked out that video, go to YouTube, or it's on the Instagram, and I pinned it to the top of the profile. But on YouTube, it is called, I'm pretty sure it's just called How to Make $10,000. How to easily make $10,000 extra in 2025 in New Zealand. If you search Keep the Change, it's got about 6,000 views on YouTube, which is pretty good going. What else we got here? There's actually people talking about property maintenance work for me. Started my business 2024, making around 10 grand per month. It's just epic to see what there's so much positivity on there. And people are even saying, that was the grilling I needed. The secret is having the FFS mindset. I don't know what that means, but anyway, people are just too lazy. There's a lot. What else have we got in here? There's a lot of cool comments. So yeah, the single video could help change so many people's lives for the better. I hope so. I certainly hope so. So check that out if you haven't. And the best time to start, well, right now. And action starts when you stop comparing yourselves to others and start believing in your own opportunities. Small moves lead to big results over time. I know this as well, because as much as we can talk about the people who can't see opportunity every week I get messages from people who are winning and who are telling me what's happened over 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, that sort of thing. And even, Angela on the podcast, all the little steps that she was taking and then how it's snowballing into bigger wins. I get those messages, and those are the inspirational people that we need around us, not the people telling us that it can't happen and it can't be done. Like no good comes of that. We just stay stuck, and we don't want to stay stuck. So as always, the key is to focus on what's in your control. And I would encourage you too, to see if you can help others do the same. And if it's friends or family, and they're on the edge, so they're not like really far gone where the world's against them and like it'll never be better and whatever. Like if they're sort of, they're struggling a little bit, I do think it's a little bit of our duty in a time like this, and probably all the time to be honest, to try and help those people and just help them see a little bit better. And one of the things that I'll often do, whether it's speaking to a business owner or people who are, kind of leaning one way, I'll just be like, okay, like what good's going to come of continuing to think and believe and act like that? And it's really hard for them to answer something like that. And it can be a good way to just pause the conversation, but okay, well, what do we have in our control? And like, what do you want to happen? Okay, well, how could you make that happen? And have just some of those like real calm type questions for people. And with family, like it's easy for it to be emotional, right? And for it to get carried away, because that's just we're compared to friends or other people that we may bump into in our life. Like it's not as emotional, and sometimes I reflect on that too, and we have conversations from like, okay, if this was the same conversation but it wasn't with your family member, how different would the conversation be, or like what would the tone of the convo be? And often I think we would approach that differently. So anyway, we all have to accept that there will be people like this, but when they show up in your comments and your DMs, behind your back, on social media, in the workplace, wherever, just accept that it is part of it, and that's how they're choosing to live their life. And the blessing is that you're not choosing to live your life like that, and your life could be so much worse if you continue to think like them, and that's how you saw the world. But you've obviously decided at some stage not to think and be and act like that, but you probably can reflect at a point in your life where it's been hard not to. And I think for some of these people, like they just haven't been able to break it, and it's really sad. The sad piece for me is that it flows on to other people, and they believe it so much that they have to try and tell other people to try and take your opportunity and your hope and whatnot from you. But then if they're passing shit on to their kids or other people in their family and stuff, then there's got to be more of us that are trying to get to those people and be like, oh no, sorry, you've just been shown the wrong way. It's all good. We can reshape some of these things. So obviously that's what I'm trying to do with Keep the Change, mindset, financial mindset, all those sorts of things. And I know that it's working because I get so many messages where people are basically starting their own journey, and they just needed something like this. So the student was ready, and they found the content. This might be the catalyst for them, and they might jump into some other stuff. Brilliant. Fill your boots. But I do think that, as I often say, 100,000 Kiwi with better financial literacy will create a better New Zealand. So that's the goal, and we're slowly getting there. Anyway, let's get out of here. Did you know Boxing Day sales spend was up 13% on last year? That's pretty gnarly, eh? It was up 13%. Remember, Christmas Eve sales were down. They were the slowest in 6 or 7 years. But I assume, we got bargain hunters out in force, spending maybe some vouchers and whatnot. But 13% is a pretty big increase. But my one hope is that they weren't using money that they don't have. So, as we know from Theyve and other some of the Centrix data in the past and whatnot, often people are ticking up debt in the festive time to make sure that they can still, have an exciting Christmas and festive time, and then they've got to try and pay it back. So it's going to be tough to start the old 2025 year on the back foot, especially if unemployment continues to rise, and some of those people are then going to regret buying some of the things that they did. But of course, we can always sell them and try and pay that debt off. But how many times have we talked about that? I'll leave you to it. It's been good to get back into this. 13 minutes, Mikey's going to be in here. We're going to sit down and record a 2025 podcast and bring the heat.